Hello, here we are. It's actually hump day, and we're going to talk about the head down cue again. We're inside the Kandoo Equine online training, and I did try and get you here yesterday, but I had a bit of a technical problem. Don't you love technical things? I'm a horse trainer, not a computer geek, but sometimes it seems like it's the other way around. Anyway, here we are. So we're going to do take two. Head down. Now on Monday, Motivation Monday, I talked about the head down cue, and I said there was nothing less motivating than when you've got a really good system for teaching something. It all works, it's fantastic, and everybody says, you know, this is the way to go, and it works for everybody, it seems, but you. Why doesn't it work for you? And you've been trying to do this and trying to get your horse to do the movement, whatever it is you want to do, and it doesn't work, but everyone says this is what you should do. And I find that really, really frustrating and really demotivating. And it happens quite a lot. There's quite a lot of myths out there in horse training, and we're going to debunk a few of those on Mondays with Motivation Monday. And this Monday, it was the old head down thing. And you quite often hear, oh, all you need to do to calm your exuberant, fresh, crazy, anxious horse down is just teach it the head down cue, because a horse with its head down can't be overexcited. So a horse with its head down is calm, but I'm not sure that it works like that. I think that the horse with its head down isn't afraid, but that doesn't mean that putting its head down is going to make it not afraid, if you know what I mean. So if you see a horse grazing in the paddock, it's not anxious, it's grazing, it has its head down, that's great. If you see a horse, or if you're riding a horse, even worse, that has its head up in the air and it's screaming and it's terribly anxious and it's terrified, and you physically cue it to put its head down, that I don't think will remove the anxiety for you. I think there's other ways of doing that. I think there's better ways of doing that. And I think that's today why we are inside the Kandoo Equine online training. The other reason I wanted to come back here is that a couple of people have said to me this week, it's so nice that you take us into the training, because often with these things, and there aren't all that many online training systems for horses available as yet, but they quite often don't take you in. So you have to lay out quite a lot of money before you really have an idea of what you're getting. And I don't want you to have to do that with my training. I want you to really understand what it is. I want you to know what's inside before you get in there, before you part with your money, before you make that decision, because I'm very confident that you will enjoy it and that it will meet your needs. And I certainly don't want you in here if it's not for you, and it's not for everybody. There's absolutely the case. Of course, it's not for everybody. But if you have a horse that suffers from anxiety and you want to know how to help your horse and help yourself in those situations, and you've tried teaching the head down cue, come along today and I will show you another way of doing that inside my training. While we're here, this is the front page of the training. You can get a little bit of a tour on that video there, and it tells you a little bit about it, and it shows you the pricing options down there. Anyway, don't forget while you're here, the first thing is to pick up some free training. Make sure you do that before you leave. Once you are a member, if you click up here on your navigation, My Library, if you go to My Library, that is going to take you to all the training courses that you've got. Now, in here at the moment, I've got the horse training course, which is the main course we'll be looking at today. And I've also got the free training tips. Now, anybody can go in and get the free training tips. It's a series of videos and PDFs and things, and you can go in there and get that. All you need to do is put your email address in to make yourself a library, and it will be here for you. And it's being added to constantly, so go and check it every now and then. There'll be a few more videos in there for you. Anyway, come along to the horse training course. Now, if you're really interested in teaching your horse the head down cue, let's say you've got a horse that's really bad at bridling. Well, you can go all the way through. These are all the different modules inside the training. You can go along right to the final page here, and you can look in the resources section. So if we click in there, now here you'll find various things, but one of the things down the bottom of the page here, you'll find journal and magazine articles that I've written. And this has the whole series of articles that I've written for Horses and People magazine, a great magazine. If you don't already subscribe, you really should, although you could read, the best articles or here if you're a member. If you click there, the head down cue is taught in this issue, and it goes through stages, pictures, and it's really comprehensive. It takes you through step by step and also teaches you bridling. So if that is a particular issue you have, do go there and read that first. If not, let's say you've got an anxious horse. The first thing I think you should do is come along to the engagement zone lessons, because what's going wrong with your horse when it's getting anxious and its head's up and it's getting frightened is that it's left your bubble of communication. It's quite possible that you never built a bubble of communication with your horse, and we'll get onto that next. But if that's not the case, it means it's left your bubble of communication. So it's left the engagement zone. Now, the engagement zone is the emotional level of the horse. And if your horse is naturally a pretty normal, not terribly anxious horse, let's say every horse's emotional level, you could judge it out of 100. Now, the Palomino standing here in front of us should be a 50 out of 100. She's just a horse. She's not excited. She's not bored. She's just normal. Now, if I wanted to teach her a lesson, like if I wanted her to learn something, I would then have to raise her emotional level just a little bit above where she is now. Now, I've found with an experiment I did a couple of years ago with 100 horses and measuring their heart rates, was that you don't need to raise their emotional level too much. And using the heart rate, I found between 10 and 15% was fine. And what that did was it engaged them mentally to the lesson. So they were learning better when they were engaged with the lesson, and they weren't asleep during the lesson. They hadn't sort of switched off, and they weren't frightened, in which case they're not learning either. So there's this nice place that I call the engagement zone. And what happens when let's say you're riding your horse, of course, you're asking it to do things. So it's going to be in the engagement zone. So it's not going to be like the Palomino there. It's going to be a little bit more emotional than that. So let's say it's around 60 instead of 50. If it's natural is 50, it's around 60. And suddenly a tractor comes down the road and the horse goes up to a 70. Now, the horse, of course, dictates the emotional level. And so if a horse has gone out of your bubble of communication by going up like that, then you need to re-engage the horse and bring it back to the engagement zone. So that's where you have to learn to raise and lower the emotional level of the horse. Because if the horse goes up to 60, goes up to 70 from a nice, quiet sort of 60 riding along, goes up to 70, it's tempting just to try and bring the horse back down to 60, but it's actually also impossible. You could try the head down cue, but I'll tell you now it doesn't work. So what you've got to do is you've got to actually start getting the horse to do something, which means pushing the emotional level up just a little bit more, maybe to 72, and then saying, okay, now would you like to relax? So then you can offer it the opportunity to come back down again. But simply offering a horse that's at 70 the opportunity to relax and come back down to 65 is not going to work. So you need to actually take control and say, right, I'm going to raise your emotional level just a little bit, and then I'm going to say, now would you like to come down and relax here with me? And that's the best way of doing it. Then we can start taking control of the feet. So once you've worked your way through that module, the engagement zone, come back to courses. And way that I've found the easiest to get horses into the engagement zone and keep them in the engagement zone is to teach give to the bit. Now, give to the bit looks like, once the horse is working this under saddle, if we look at the horse in the full length training lesson here, it looks like it's all about frame and dressage and that sort of thing because of the frame that the horse is traveling in. But in fact, it's all about safety and it's all about relaxation. And so all it is teaching the horse to give to pressure. So it's all teaching the horse negative reinforcement. So I pick up a little bit of pressure on the bridle, and these lessons will teach you how much pressure to pick up, how you get started, how much pressure you need to hold, what the head position of the horse should be, where you should stand, and how to work with different horses, such as the off the track or the older horses. But once you pick up pressure, the horse responds to that, you release the pressure. So what it's doing is teaching, it's building that communication. It's the start of your bubble of communication. You pick up pressure, the horse responds in movement, you release the pressure. The horse has just earned that reward. And the horse goes, oh, well, this is really interesting because if I engage with you, then I get a reward for doing that. And that's actually, you know, much more interesting than just standing there and ignoring you. Or it's also much easier for me and much more pleasant for me to be ridden where you're not holding this constant pressure. Instead of that, you're actually picking up pressure. I'm responding, you're releasing, and we're communicating. So the horse becomes part of the training process, where often they're just sort of ignored, really. And we pull them into frame and we ride them with a really hard contact. And the horse just goes, oh, well, you know what? It doesn't matter if I pull on the bridle or if I stick my head in the air or whatever I do. It really makes no difference because you're just going to hold X amount of newtons in my mouth and that's going to hurt and it's going to be unpleasant. So I'll just, you know, do what I have to do until you put me back in the paddock, basically. So the engagement zone is really, really important. The horse that's anxious, that you feel tempted to teach the head down to cue, doesn't need that. That's not going to help you. What you need to do is engage the horse with you. The horse has left your bubble of communication. You need to get the horse back into your bubble, and you need to start talking to your horse and communicating with your horse with some sort of exercise. Give to the bit will get you there. It's a thing that I have found that gets the horse into the engagement zone and keeps them in the engagement zone. The least stressful way I have found possible. So that's what I use. Once we do that, you then start moving the feet and taking them where you want them to go. And with that, you start work with shoulder control. And so once you've got control of the horse's emotional level, you've got the horse in the engagement zone, we then start to move the feet. Now I start with just the front feet, so shoulder control is the place to go. The thing about moving the feet is that the more anxious the horse is, the more movement you're going to want to need, because the horse wants to move. Even the horse that freezes, really, you know, if the horse felt it had a choice, it would leave. So if the horse is very anxious, just simply asking it to give to bit pressure may not be enough for you. You may have to go to shoulder work. So by making the request more complicated, it engages the horse more, because it says to the horse, right, yes, I did ask you to give to the bit, that's great, but now I'm asking you to step your left foot to the right. And the horse has to think about that. We always say the horse can only think of one thing at a time. Let's make sure it's us and moving its left foot right and not the tractor. Because we need to be, and it's not about being more important. Often it's about being more interesting, or often it's about being something that the horse can achieve. You know, there's nothing that the horse can do about the tractor. There's nothing we can do about the tractor. But the horse can actually do something positive, and we can be proactive about the situation by taking control of it and saying, right, what we're going to do is we're going to strengthen our bubble of communication, and I'm going to get you to do some increasingly complicated things until I've got you back in the engagement zone, and then we're going to ride off together in our nice, safe bubble of communication. Anyway, that is it from me for today, and I will see you tomorrow with Throwback Thursday. Bye for now.